Smoke signals from around the campfire.
I was kind of curious was I don't know how you feel, but I'd quite like to open it up to the floor and just see what everybody feels about, even just, if you want to each close your eyes just for a moment and just feel into this word spaciousness.
The word spaciousness, because it's something I don't have very much of. I was really good just to stop and think, why was I so attracted to that word when I saw it this morning? And it's because I really don't feel like I give myself enough time to have it in my day-to-day life. And so it's like something I get, like, it gets fitted into a small weekend of maybe going to a campfire or going to a gathering or something, and then it's back to this sort of tightness of being an educator and in school, and even when I work really hard to not have that, it just seems to come in anyway. So to stop, just to really tune into it, it's like, actually I can hear the birds, I can feel the width of Avebury all the way around me, and it's like spaciousness is all there all the time. It's just I'm not in touch with it. That's it, isn't it? I don't give myself time to let that in. So that was really powerful, and I just really enjoyed it. It's a good place to start. Thank you.
Great awareness though, Sam. I mean, beautiful awareness, self-awareness, to actually just take that moment for yourself and really value yourself and just feel the connection to Avebury all around you. That's big.
Yeah, that was it. It was just like the windows are open, and obviously I'm still in bed. Sorry, but it's like it's peaceful, and I could feel it. And I thought, gosh, I don't, even in the morning when I get up in the morning, I don't take that 5 minutes to just give myself that space. And actually, that would be a good thing to do every day because it's always here. And yeah, so instead of that striving for it, which then makes it tighter, and then integrating it, I find it so hard to integrate spaciousness. It's like I always want it and I'm aware of it, but it feels like the more I work towards it, the more it's almost the more elusive it comes. It's only in the process of letting go that feeling starts to come. So that was just my thing that happened. Jolly glad I popped in, guys.
It's good to see you.
It's a choice. It's always a choice, isn't it? But you've beautifully highlighted. So
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you talk about waking up in the morning. I was musing on a conversation I had with someone this week who said that when they wake up, they still listen to Radio 4's Today programme. And I thought, well, not only have I been boycotting the BBC now for several years, but I generally haven't turned a telly or terrestrial radio on, apart from a few documentaries, for quite a few years. And that reminded me of what we were talking about, Jackie, earlier in the week. You were talking about no longer reading the Sunday newspaper and a sense of keeping up with politics on a 3D planet. I think it was the words you used. And there's a sense of, I think you said, I just can't be bothered, which again sort of chimes with my own. I don't feel I'm out of touch with what's going on, but there are other things to be feeling into. That all comes back to the heart-centeredness of what we're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious to just hear from everybody else, because that was just powerful, obviously, in that moment. And it just shows us what Sam just shared with us, that it really just, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take money throwing at this. It doesn't take expensive workshops, courses, anything. It's actually all within us. In any single moment of time, we can choose to have this spaciousness. And I feel this word spaciousness, for me at least, it's almost like deliciousness. There's something really nourishing, really yummy about you just know it's going to fill you up if you create this space from the inside out. The big thing is, how do we do it? And what is the best way to do it? And when do I do it? And how am I going to keep going with it? Because once you've had a wee taster of this beautiful expansiveness from the inside out. And let's be really real about this. Not many of us have got time to be like these ancient yogis in caves and disappear for weeks, months, years on end to go and find ourselves, And I actually do think a lot of this has been massively overcomplicated. And if we bring it right back down to the real truth of who we actually are, then life is, well, I have this little saying, it's exquisitely simple. It is like beyond words. It is so exquisite, and yet it's just so beautifully simple too, as Sam's just, you know, testament to. So I'd be really honoured and curious to hear from everybody in the group what the word means and how it feels, or what you experienced when we had that wee minute or two to ourselves.
Yeah, very, very positive. I felt a sense of this kind of expansiveness. And what came up for me was, you know, there's plenty of room for everybody on the earth. There's plenty of resources. You know, there's time as well. And it's, you know, that this idea of population, and there's too many people and there aren't enough resources, and actually the, you know, the powers that shouldn't be, right, who are bringing up all these things and bringing up the fear, it's just, it isn't true. It's an illusion. You know, there's room for everybody. And then also, you know, with the whistles and the bells, there's that kind of constriction, you know, you will do this, you will do that, you don't have time, you know. And actually it would be so much more, in a way, spacious and productive as well, to say, you know, there's plenty of time, you know, get dressed, and, you know, there's a beautiful breakfast waiting for you, there's an exciting class, there's a, you know, wonderful activity. And, you know, that would bring the energy up, rather than this kind of constriction and, you know, you can't and you won't and we will, you know, all this kind of oppressive, you know, energy. So yeah, that's, yeah.
For me, I think it's interesting what Diana said about getting out of the city, because for me, what comes up with this is always wanting to get out into nature, whether it's, well, what comes into my head, what am I picturing is nature. I think, even, I know we're not really evolved even now to live in cities. I mean, if you look at human history, if you go back, whatever it is, I don't know how long you go back, 250,000 years or something. You know, when did cities first start appearing? When people sort of started crowding together. Okay, we lived in caves or in groups of huts or whatever, but not right next to nature. And I think that's where a lot of, certainly for me, where a lot of issues come in, is this compression, if you like. City planners have always known that you need green spaces, and there must be, this has gone back a long way. The other thing I picked up was about letting things go. You know, we hang on to a load of poo of our lives, and we need to just, yeah, chuck it away if it's dragging us back. For my personal dilemma is that this business about saying, oh yeah, I used to be a rebel, I did lots of things when I was a child, and this was great. And I'm thinking, well, I trod the straight and narrow most of my life, and thinking, well, I should have been kicking the traces and doing stuff. But then I suppose the other half of that is that I've got a reasonably comfortable life now, probably as a result of treading the straight and narrow. So now I've got the freedom to muck about. I don't know how you square that circle, because, you know, so I think the only thing you can say is in life is follow your passion. What makes what floats your boat. You know, if it's if it's reading, or I remember a story once. I was visiting my daughter when she was at university in Brighton. It was in the winter. It was a lovely, lovely sunny day though. And we went to her house she was staying in, and then it was Sunday. And in the afternoon, we got out and I think we were just getting in the car to go back home. And across the road, there was this pub which had a snooker hall. And all these guys were sort of pouring out of this, stacking about, and having spent the whole sunny day pouring over an artificial light in a dark room, knocking snooker balls around the place and looking bleary-eyed. I'm thinking, well, I couldn't do that. It's just spending this whole lovely day. Well, no, they may have been totally excited about it and think this is great, but it's not for me. No, it was like, oh my goodness me, why should I be doing that? But every time, for me, what spacious means is, and also giving thanks for what you got. You know, positive thinking, as well as getting out in nature. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, as soon as you say go into a space, I immediately go into breath, because it's the breath that takes me there, and it's really easy just to float with the breath and go into it. So what happened for me, it took me down into the pool of Guanyin energy that exists underneath this building, which is extraordinary. And then I just rolled with the word spaciousness, and so I just found myself yeah, it's not floating and it's not whooshing. There's some other word. Words are no good when it's feelings. So I went up out into the cosmos, and just that whole being amongst the stars. I love that feeling when I get there. And it's very easy for me to access all of this stuff. So yeah, and then I kind of rolled back into this space. This is a very small space that I live in. It's effectively a converted shed is what it is. And it's wonderful because it's a tiny little space, but I'm surrounded by, there's a wall and there's all sorts of stuff here, but it's a lovely feeling of, it's not closed in at all. It's just a lovely feeling of being able to be here in quiet, considering I live just literally 2 minutes from a high street, like an old-fashioned high street, and it's amazing. So yes, that was lovely. And then as people have been talking, I've just been reminded of a video that I saw a few days ago of a boy who's 6 years old. And it's wonderful because he has this little ritual that he does in the morning. He sits at 6:30 in the morning, having his cup of, I think it was something like chamomile and something or other tea, with reading a book. And that's how he starts his day, because that gives him his into the day. And it was just so beautiful. And it's really seemingly quite popular on YouTube. And I'm not surprised, because it's, you know, you could just breathe along with this kid, just, you know, sat there just chilling and just in his own little world. And it was beautiful, beautiful. So another way of sort of spaciousness and accessing it, sit and read a book and drink a cup of tea. So it's cool.
Hey, Jackie, thanks so much. I got a lot out of what you said. I mean, it was so coherent, so natural, so flowing, so authentic how you spoke. I appreciate that very much, and it really resonated with me. And as folks who know me and heard me speak here in this space before, you know, when that resonates, it's almost like these ideas and concepts start flowing around. So actually, for me, that minute of just being was nice to let those things settle, you know, because I scribbled lots of notes as you were talking of things that were coming up in me. I'm a meme man. I love the quotes because they say so much. But you know, you talk about being awake, and I love that. You know, when I first started to practice and understand and really appreciate, well, started off as mindfulness, then it was meditation. Now it's contemplation and centering prayer is what I would call it now. And I do that every day. So I mean, I love that that's always accessible to us, that space. And I think I can't remember who was saying it, but that spaciousness is always there, and it's actually oh yes, it was you, Sam. I think it was that it's always there, but our attention isn't always on it because maybe we're distracted or we're occupied in something else. And I just love that is always there. So spaciousness is always available to us in the midst of storms, in the midst of fear, stress, whatever is going on. It's always available within. You know, we don't have to. That's the great thing. We carry it with us wherever we go. There we are. So we can take that with us, and it's that spaciousness is, and I love that again. And what came up for me, you're saying it's beyond words. So the phrase "silence is the language of God; everything else is a poor interpretation." So actually, you know, just sometimes just shutting up and being. I think it's Thomas Keating who says, "So we just need you to sit down and shut up," which is great coming from a monk. A Benedictine monk, and he says we've got to sit down and shut up, and this is exactly what we need to do sometimes to appreciate that spaciousness. And I love being able to do that. That's where I find that spaciousness. And then also, yeah, lots of things flowing for me. Spiritual, I see it as being, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and I really, that's so if it's the other way around, I think it can feel quite small, because we are a tiny container of a human being. Remember from the movie Aladdin? It's like, awesome power, itty bitty living space, you know, and it's like, yeah, that's okay, that's the Aladdin, that's the genie in the lamp, but that's us too, you know, this tiny, tiny living space. And if we say, well, that's all we have, it's just, I'm just me and my body, that's it. I think we're missing out. I think there's so much more spaciousness to be tapped into. And for me, the words that come up with spaciousness are expansiveness, you know, almost that expansiveness. And I think when it was interesting, Jackie, you said about dark night, and I think that I've had numerous dark nights through my life, and this recent one we've just been through has been very dark, but it brings so much light and so much expansiveness and so much spaciousness in it, because there's so much fear pumped out and, you know, almost like flooded with fear. Well, what do you do with that? And so I know for me, it's been a case of coming to a point of, and you said self-acceptance, and I thought, yeah, definitely self-acceptance, and also acceptance of what is. As wrong as it may be, as evil as it may be, as fearful as it may be, it is. And that's the only place I find I can start from. And that's been a huge growth for me, because I'm always it shouldn't be like that. That's wrong, you know. And it's like, well, it is. And so what are you going to do with that? What's the next move? And so spaciousness, expansiveness, being in the moment, and that letting go process is definitely part of it. So almost letting go creates space, because you get rid of all that clutter. And I'm the same as you, Jackie. I'm a big book man. I love it. Always accumulating books. But it's interesting when you come back to a book, you're different. So it reads different. And then I think eventually, like you say, it's actually time to let it go, because it's not relevant anymore. It played a role in your life. And actually there's other ways of gaining wisdom, knowledge. Yeah, there is the, I don't know, the cosmic or the universal encyclopedia we can access within, perhaps. I don't know, I'm just making it up as I go along. But yeah, spaciousness. I love it. Falling awake, being spiritual. And I think that's, for me, that's how, I think, Pete, you asked the question, you know, what do we do? How do we transcend? And I think for me, the transcending the fear into love is to become more expansive and to be more spacious, because it's not going to change. Although I think there is a place for activism and pushing back, but also being different. I think that helps. So being, you know, as corny as it sounds, it is true. Being the change you want to see in the world is, but you can't do that from a place of ego, I don't think. You do that from a place of spaciousness and from that deeper place within self, the eternal, the whatever language you happen to use, because we do have access to and that universal source within that connects us all. And yet fear is all about keeping that space tiny, isn't it? That's why the news keeps us in fear. So unplug from that, let that go. Then there's the, you know, all the things that keep us in fear, even in our own heads. So can we let that go? Don't believe everything you hear, especially if you're the one thinking it. Yeah. So that was great. So that's what spaciousness means to me in all of this. So yeah, I love it.
Thanks, Andrew. Interestingly, sit down and shut up mantra was our boarding schools.
Oh, that's it. Another one is sit down, shut up, and come to your senses. That was the other one. That's the third one. Come to your senses. As in, don't just see the world through your brain, but see it through your body and your heart. Yeah,
our school was, we'll knock some sense into you, I think was the way they used to do it, with a heavy French textbook around your head.
Right, yeah. And kill some brain cells at the same time.
Yeah. Sam, anything coming up for you at the moment?
Gosh, loads actually. It's really interesting. So I was thinking about spaciousness. I think it was you, Simon. They were saying about this getting out into nature, and I'm thinking about sort of the idea of sort of physical geography, just the very natural geography of the world, and then humans have sort of done this thing. And they've done this thing that is naturally not spacious. They've sort of utilized space to please themselves, to gain for themselves. It's like been a greedy process. And we, 8 billion people on the planet, obviously, who've populated And we don't have the resources and you know, realistically, unless we really chose to move into a loving permaculture, tribal life, moved away from a red economy. And the reality is in the way that we're going, it naturally doesn't create spaciousness on the planet. I'm a geography teacher, so my brain was going into this human and physical geography world and thinking it's so easy to talk about, you know, sort of the natural world with a sense of spaciousness. It's like it's naturally spacious. I can go and watch a river, I can look at the chalk stream, I can do so many things. And then the minute I start talking about human geography, it instantly gets tight. There's instantly this urban geography. How are we going to fix climate change? How are we going to? It's like nothing but a set of problems. And I don't listen to the news unless I read like 1.5 degrees and things like that. Then I do go and have a look because it's relevant to my work. And I haven't for years and years and years. And gave it up when the kids were about 2, and I broke my television and let it go and decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. And then I accidentally got a new one because my son lent me his while he was away, living with my mum. And I had his. And when he left, I bought myself a new one. This is quite an entertaining story. And I felt so bad. I was like, I've not had one for like 21 years, and I bought myself. And on the day we were doing the transformational breath work, I was trying to get my computer in the right position, and I knocked the television down. It was like slow motion. This screen fell on the floor, and I picked it. It was like somebody smashing a phone. It's like, it was like, lasted 3 weeks. I just put it outside to recycling, let it go. Okay, I'm so sorry, the universe. I took a resource there, and it was a silly thing to do. And I knew in my heart I'd done absolutely the wrong thing. Back off again. So I recreated the spaciousness by allowing myself to do some breathing, going back into myself. Oh, by the way, that went. So for me, there's this awareness that our sort of natural stance on a much more global sort of socioeconomic level is that of non-spaciousness. And so the way when we tune into that, whether it be going into the local supermarket or going into the town or the parking or all the different things that you're talking about, the more we participate, we naturally feel that because it's there, it's completely there, like whether we like it or not. So I suppose the desire for me is around, as you were saying, Simon, it was you that sort of triggered this way of thinking to me, was this sort of moving towards a sense of a simpler life, being more in nature, preferably getting off grid. I'm really, South Wales is seriously calling to me at the moment. I'm really feeling drawn to moving into a gentler life where I am listening to the ocean. I'm not at the effect as such of the enormity of what's going on, because it is. It doesn't mean I don't want to be a climate change activist, doesn't mean I don't want to be a teacher and be in there fighting the good fight with the kids. I'm happy to do that work. I love my transformational technology and I really appreciated the things that you were saying. I can hear the difficulties, and I also know that you work to create a community around you of support. And I think that's also part of it, is that allowing that supportive love into our world to find these places is like having the intention of spaciousness is quite a powerful intention to have.
Probably my own really spaciousness was basically the drive out of with my brother yesterday around Northampton. We just ran the rural roads, but we stopped at the sense of space, and the sense of space around me was something I really enjoyed. And stopping off at deserted dwelling houses of and just sort of having just a quick explore and sort of a look around, and just sort of the feeling that sort of this could serve somebody as a home. Sort of it's just sort of like that, just dreams that sort of probably won't come reality. Yeah, but the sense of space and the sense of exploring was something that I really enjoyed.
My sense of spaciousness has not expanded physically, but it definitely has expanded virtually over the past several years, where I have been watching music, I don't know what's the right word, broadcasts, videos, live streams, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not tech savvy, but I've been able to do that. And I've made friends on that other network, which we don't name here, in 30 to 40 different countries. And that's a pretty wild experience.
Pete had asked me to sort of what was coming up for me in terms of everybody's shares. And I think that was the big thing that came up for me, was just everybody's reflections. It's a bit like when I worked with the airlines, I was with British Airways for 10 years out of London, and I flew long haul for them, and also I was a trainer. And one of the things we used to use was, it couldn't have been simpler, it literally was a page of A4, and we used to write a capital A and the number 4. So 2 things on this piece of paper, and I would be training captains that had been flying 30 odd years, and some cabin crew that had been around for maybe 10 years, and I had only been literally with BA for about 18 months, so I was the new kid. And I used to have to stand up in front of this room with this piece of paper at some point in the morning session, and say to everybody, what does this mean to you? What does A4 mean to you? And eventually we would run out of answers. There was always the same 3, 4, 5 answers that would come back, which after you've done the training for a few years, you always knew what people were going to say. But it was very enlightening for the group at the time, always. And everybody interpreted it differently, really, within reason.
It sounds like you were kind of a therapist for the company and the work.
I don't know about that, but there is a point to this. But so yes, we were all looking at the same thing essentially, but people would see it. Some people would see it as the A4 Audi car. Some people would see it as literally the page of A4. Some people would see it as the A4 was the Bath Road that was just outside Heathrow. It runs up the perimeter of Heathrow. I can't remember what else there was now, but you get the sense of that we were all looking at the same thing, but we each had a kind of different interpretation on it. And that was the same sense I got in the room this morning on our call. Was we really, you know, when we feel into this word spaciousness and the energy that's behind the actual word, it's so much deeper. It's so much deeper than just physical space. There is this place where, and we've talked about it today, you know, Simon's mentioned it, and Diane's mentioned it too. Sam was talking about it as a geography teacher, and Brian, you talked about it, just getting out there with your brother yesterday, getting out into physical space. Diane, you talked about it going up into the cosmos and feeling that expanse. Simon talking about swimming again and being outdoors. And, you know, when we actually look at who and what we are beyond just this physical vessel, and I think Andrew was talking about this too, we really are, and it took me years to get my head around this, to really feel this. And you mentioned this, Andrew, about the senses. We really are here on this planet to feel. We're very unique as spiritual human beings, that we have this capacity to feel, and hence we can smell, taste, touch, and feel. And I think this, for me, this key word, feeling this spaciousness from within, going out into the physical world, like all of us have talked about, fills us up, literally fills ourselves up, because nature is vibrating at a higher level, a higher frequency. And sometimes this can get a bit complicated and start going off on a bit of a scientific tangent as to atoms and molecules and all the rest of what actually is vibration. But if we just save all that for another day, because I'm not a scientist, and there's people out there that can explain all that side of things a lot better than I can. But I do believe and I do trust that we are just energy. Every single thing, everything is energy. And so when we go out into nature, nature is vibrating at a higher energy. The same with animals, which is why we feel so good when we're either outside, when we're walking, when we're swimming, when we curl up with an animal. A log fire can do it for us. Certain foods can do it for us. You know, it is nourishing, literally filling up our cells. And so we feel expanded. And when we feel expanded, we feel more spaciousness within sight. And that is the same with all these modalities that are out there. Breathwork, yoga, yin yoga is really popular just now. You know, all these modalities are helping us to connect with these other dimensions, these other parts, these other aspects of ourself, that when we are in our heads, when we are in a space where we feel compressed And that could be a physical space. Obviously, Pete and I felt that at boarding school with bells and whistles, but it could be you're in the office. It could be just in a relationship, a particular relationship you might have with a brother, a mother, a father, a cousin, whatever. When we feel compressed, literally our cells contract. And that is put very simply. I realize that this, there will be people out there that can explain this in a lot deeper, more comprehensive way. But I do like to keep things very simple because I can understand them then. And it means I can feel them. And I think what we've talked about today is that spaciousness in the benefits of going out in the physical world, because nature's reflecting that back to us, that spaciousness all the time. That letting go, let nature do its thing. And then when we go out and connect with it, we're also letting go of our body, that compression in our head that we all feel at times, and that compression in our heart, and actually also in our pelvic bowl as well, because it runs right through the axes, the entire axes of our body, up and down. And there's so much I could share about this. I mean, I think we've got oodles of other conversations we can open up about this another time, but I think really the bottom line, and I think my takeaway from this conversation is
losing the connection. You're very distorted.
I'm really distorted. Oh, I apologize. I'll finish now, but it was really just to say that for me, I think it's just about mastering our own spaciousness. It's not something that I don't see myself here by any stretch of the imagination as an expert or here as a teacher, or I just know my own journey that I've been on. I know what's worked for me in terms of making me feel more expanded and alive, and that ultimately is the vibration of love that we all carry within ourselves. And I am now choosing for myself to feel more liberated, less in that contracted place, less feeling that I don't have any control over my own life, that I don't have any choice, but more actually I am space, and I'm feeling space, I'm choosing space. And that's all I think each of us can do, is have our own inner journey, which then gets reflected in our outer experience. And that's a choice thing. And we can all support each other. We can offer tools that can lift each other up and lift our own selves up. But ultimately, the journey is with our own self. And there is choice. And it's having that hope and belief and trust that we are something so much bigger. We are so much more expanded than the powers that have led this world have sort of told us that we are. So I just want to thank you all. I think it's been brilliant. It's been a lovely conversation, and we could take it in a million different directions.